Do Freemasons have a prime directive, some kind of guiding mission that we're on? We're going to talk about it coming next on Symbols and Secrets. Welcome to Symbols and Secrets, the viewer's guide to Dan Brown's The Lost Symbol, both the novel, which has 200 million copies in print, and the brand new television show, which you can find on peacocktv.com and in the Peacock app. New episodes every single Thursday, and just announced, beginning tonight, November 8th at 10 p.m., The Lost Symbol is going to be airing on the NBC Broadcast Network. So we'll have a whole new bunch of Dan Brown fans joining us here on Symbols and Secrets as we discuss the Masonic symbols and secrets and stories woven into the story of the Lost Symbol. I am Maynard Edwards, 32nd degree, KCCH, Scottish Rite Freemason, vlog host, and I want to tell you to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you could, and also make sure you drop a comment below. If you're a Freemason, would love for you to shout out your lodge, your Scottish Rite Valley, your York Rite chapter, your shrine, whatever you want to shout out below. Would love to hear from you. And if you've got a question or you want to add to the conversation and have some fun with us here on the channel, drop that comment below. We respond to as many as we possibly can. Getting into The Lost Symbol episode 8, which is entitled Cascade. I have to say, I had to watch this episode several times. I watched it 3 times all the way through. My first pass, I didn't see any Masonic symbols that we haven't already covered on the vlog. There's one scene where Peter Solomon is sitting down with Officer Nunez, but they're sitting in front of some Masonic elements that we've already talked about. So I was like, there's not that much Masonic stuff in here. So I went back and watched again, and I'm glad I did because there were a few things that I was so involved in the story, I missed some things sort of lurking in the background. And let's get to the first one.
We want the artifacts. He had a phone on him. I'm trying to crack the passcode.
I'm not going to explain exactly what's going on in this scene because here on Symbols and Secrets we have a no spoiler guarantee. But I want to point out that this scene is taking place in an actual Masonic lodge room. In other words, a room where Freemasons hold their lodge meetings. We're going to talk a little bit more about the lodge room in a few minutes on the vlog, but this one symbol, this is the only glimpse we get of it really in this episode, and I want to point it out. It's this funny looking cube right here. That is what's called a Rough Ashlar, and it is part of a pair of symbols that when taken together give us the continuum that Freemasons are on as they journey through self-improvement. The Rough Ashlar and the Perfect Ashlar. The Rough Ashlar is a stone taken straight out of the ground. It's got all those rough edges. It's really not all that useful if you're going to build anything. The Perfect Ashlar has been all smoothed out and prettied up and is ready to go right inside a building and ready to be used in the way that an architect sees fit. This is symbolic of the journey that Masons are on. We come into the world this rough ashlar, all these rough edges, and over time we try to refine ourselves. We chip away at that rough ashlar through the teachings of Freemasonry, through our education, through the blessing of God, and we chip away each and every one of those rough sides, those little rough parts of ourselves until we more closely resemble that perfect ashlar. Now, we readily acknowledge no man is ever going to reach that state of perfection. But as Freemasons, we're trying to ever get closer to that perfect ashlar within ourselves so that we can become that proverbial stone for the supreme architect of the universe, for God, to use in heaven, for that building not made with hands, as we say. And so, to me, these are 2 very important symbols of Freemasonry that most people know nothing about. But they are that continuum. And also, too, the Rough Ashlar itself, I think, teaches an important lesson in that you don't refine this stone by taking one big hammer and cracking it. No, you chip away small improvements over time. And I think that's an important lesson in that you can't wake up and just, boom, I'm better. But what you can do is you can wake up and smooth out just one of those rough edges each and every day. And slowly over a period of days, weeks, months, and years, you get closer and closer to resembling that perfect ashlar that we see and fit yourself to be one of those stones that the supreme architect can put to use. Lots and lots of science and scientific elements in this particular episode. Now, there were many in some of the other episodes, but this one I think really has a lot of that in it. And Dan Brown and the storytellers here on The Lost Symbol do such a good job of taking real scientific things, just like they take real Masonic symbols, and weaving them into the story that it becomes very difficult to tell what's real and what is make-believe. So I can't get into the science of this. I'm just not educated enough to be able to explain any of this, to tell you whether this is real or this is not real. It's a bit of a rabbit hole if you start to research it. So I don't want to get down into that. But I will say my friends over at the Masonic Roundtable, it's another channel here on YouTube, several Freemasons who sit around and talk about a lot of different Masonic things. They get into some of the discussion surrounding the science of this on their vlog, The Found Symbol, and I've got a link above and a link below if you want to hear them get into that, because they do get into that rabbit hole a little bit more and talk about the science. And I wanted to point out that, one, that they do that, but two, also wanted to make mention of the fact that this science element of the show specifically really doesn't have much to do with Freemasonry, even though there are parts of this episode that might lead you to believe that they do.
The CIA woman is receiving treatment.
And the contractors?
Their families are being compensated.
How much is this costing me?
That should be low priority.
I wasn't consulted on this insane plan to start with, so it's not low priority to me.
The plan was in service of our larger mission, to protect...
Don't presume to tell me about our larger mission. I was in the group long before you. It was quiet then. No private contractors, no CIA.
That was a time of peace. Now we find ourselves at war.
Again, nothing specifically Masonic in that scene. However, it does bring up the idea that I discussed in the opening of this vlog, in that Masons are believed to have this prime directive or this singular motive of purpose. And that's really just not the case. We're not like RoboCop where we've got a prime directive.
What are your prime directives?
Serve the public trust, protect the innocent, uphold the law.
And this isn't the MCU. We're not Hydra with one big hive mind.
Hail Hydra.
But rather, we are individuals who come together with a shared value system, with a shared basic philosophy, and a shared set of experiences by being initiated into the Masonic fraternity. There is one Grand Lodge for each state, plus each of the U.S. territories. Each of the major countries in the world has its own Grand Lodge, and those Grand Lodges set the rules for the lodges in their area, for the local lodges. So the Grand Lodge of Virginia sets the rules for all the lodges in the state of Virginia. Likewise with the state of Maryland, and so on and so forth across the entire country. And those Grand Lodges are sovereign from one another. In other words, they don't answer to one another. Now, they share what is called recognition, meaning that the Masons in Maryland recognize that the guys in Virginia are the same as them, and so they can sit in each other's lodges. And that's pretty much true for all 50 states and the U.S. territories. Overall, lodges and Grand Lodges and individual Masons have their own way of doing Masonry, so to speak. And I think that's an important point. There are some lodges that are very focused on philanthropy. Some lodges are very focused on community involvement. Some lodges are really involved in social things like, a fish fry or a chili cook-off or something like that. There are some lodges that are research lodges where they really get into the nuts and bolts of the history of Freemasonry. So every lodge has its own culture and its own sort of bent, if you will. But they all, again, have that same basic shared philosophy, that same set of values, that same, roughly the same initiatory experience. So if Masons have a collective ideal, it is to continually improve ourselves as men and as Masons so that we can improve our communities and improve our families and improve the world around us. And so that's really the only prime directive. This scene, we are back in that Masonic lodge room, and it brings up a couple of important points. First and foremost, I use the term lodge room for a specific reason, and that is because the lodge is not the building or the room in and of itself. The lodge is the people, in much the same way that the church is not a building, it is the people. However, we often interchange those terms. So when I say, I'll meet you at the lodge, I indeed mean I'm going to meet you at a lodge building. When I say the lodge is doing this, we're talking about the group of people. So they get a little bit interchangeable, but to be absolutely accurate, the lodge is the group of people and not necessarily the building. So that is why I say that this scene takes place in a lodge room. Lodge rooms the world over are basically the same. First of all, they are set in the form of what we would call an oblong square. In other words, a rectangle. They are oriented, or supposed to be oriented, to the east. And sitting in the east is the worshipful master. He is the elected leader of the lodge. So all the brothers of that lodge, once a year, they have an election, and that guy then is the worshipful master. He's in charge of the lodge for a year, and then he goes back to becoming just one of the gang. Second in charge, sitting in the west, is the senior warden. And third in charge is the junior warden. Those guys are also elected. We can get into the specifics of the other officers in the lodge at a later time, because in every state it's a little bit different. They've got, some states have deacons and stewards, some have pursuivants, there's marshals, there's tylers. And so for this vlog, it's a little bit much of a discussion to have. But the other important element is in this scene, we see they've got their computer stuff set up there in the center of the lodge room. In a normal lodge room, there would be an altar. And on that altar, there are always three things: the Holy Bible, the square, and the compasses. This got by me twice. I was on my third viewing of this particular episode before I caught this symbol, and I bet it got past most of you as well. See these statues right here? Those are the four cardinal virtues: temperance, prudence, fortitude, and justice. Masons allegorically have these as female figures. The cardinal virtues are very, very, very rich in symbolism, and this is the very tiniest tip of the iceberg. But those four cardinal virtues are important to Masons because they are the tools, if you will, by which we orient ourselves and keep ourselves in the right direction. Temperance. Obviously, we don't want to overindulge in anything, good or bad. Too much of a good thing is not a good thing anymore. Prudence teaches us to be prudent in all our decisions, to use wisdom, to be smart when we're doing things, to give careful consideration to everything. Fortitude. You want to be strong in your decisions, in your convictions, in your character, and having fortitude and having that presence about yourself is an important thing to do as a Mason, especially when you're trying to follow that fourth virtue, which is justice, to be just and good to everyone, to give every man his just due. The lost symbol is full of portraits. There are portraits, and like every time we go into Peter Solomon's house, I see a different portrait. A lot of times we can't recognize who those guys are. I assume most of them to be Freemasons. And this is one that I actually recognize. This guy in the red coat, that is Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Mozart was indeed a Freemason. We do know a lot about his Masonic activity. He became a Freemason about 7 years before he died, and he actually wrote a symphony with Masonry in mind. And we're going to talk all about Mozart and Masonry in an upcoming show here on the channel.
Hey. Did you get some water?
Yeah. Must have forgotten it in the other room.
What?
That alias he was using, the one you found on the invoice for that flotation tank.
I was having a really nice time not thinking about that.
What was the name?
Abaddon. Christopher Abaddon. Why?
Here's another one that got by me so much that this was in several other episodes and I never once stopped to look it up. And that is the name Christopher Abaddon. Something in the back of my mind, just kind of a little light bulb went off and I thought, I'm going to look that up. Abaddon indeed has a meaning. It is a Hebrew word with several meanings, none of them good. That is what Abaddon means. Christopher obviously has a relationship to Christianity and to Christ. And when you take those two names together, Christopher and Abaddon, some analogies can be drawn as to the character of Malak and to the character of Zachary Solomon. Abaddon does have a meaning as a Hebrew word, and it is touched upon, not deeply, but touched upon in high degree Masonry. In other words, in the Scottish Rite and York Rite. It's something about that clicked with me this time, and I thought I need to look that up, and I'm glad I did because it's one that I really let sneak by me. Did I miss one? Like Christopher Abaddon? I missed that a couple of episodes ago. If I missed one, brothers, if you catch it, drop a comment below. Folks watching, if you're not a Mason and you have a question, a comment, please drop it in the comments section below. You can always email me as well, podcast@scottishrite.org. Would be happy to answer any of your questions as we talk about Dan Brown's The Lost Symbol as they relate to Freemasonry or anything else really. Please make sure you take a moment, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out. Like the video, share the video with a few friends. And hey, while you're at it, don't forget to share the news about NBC showing The Lost Symbol Mondays at 10 p.m. and of course on the PeacockTV.com channel and in the Peacock app. I'm Maynard Edwards, 32nd degree KCCH, Scottish Rite Freemason. Thanks for joining us here on Symbols and Secrets. Join us next time when we talk about all your favorite Masonic symbols in Dan Brown's The Lost Symbol. Hey, if you're watching this video and you want to learn how to become a Freemason, click this video right here and it's going to give you a step-by-step process to follow on how to connect with a Masonic Lodge. And if you're already a Master Mason interested in joining the Scottish Rite, click this link right here and it's going to take you to the Scottish Rite website where you can sign up to become a Scottish Rite Mason right now.